Hi everyone, Dr. Yakos here, and our goals in integrative and functional medicine are to increase the portion of life that you live in good health, which is just as important, if not more important, than helping you to live longer. And before you could start talking about regenerative therapies or anti-aging therapies, you have to understand about some of the substances that are involved in trying to achieve these goals, and that's NAD. NAD is a substance that is extremely important. It's involved in every part of energy production, and it allows your food to be converted into ATP, or the energy that your cells use. You would die within 30 seconds if you had no NAD in your body. That is how critical it is to your cellular function. And it also acts as a sensor that enables your body cells to react to energetic stress, to activate cellular maintenance and repair processes. Also, if you wanted to measure your NAD levels, it's a very difficult process. It's not something that's done on a routine basis because it's a substance that's continuously flipping into various states inside your mitochondria, trying to produce ATP. The only way to measure NAD currently is in lab research protocols. And the biggest constraint in measuring is that 30 minutes that you have from the time you draw the blood that's being kept on ice to the time it gets to the mass spectrometer machine and a qualified lab can evaluate the sample. At some point in time, measuring NAD will become more reliable in the future. And what's known is that NAD decreases with age. The most important way that NAD is produced is through salvage of old NAD, the Nad Salvage Pathway. This pathway declines with age, so therefore decreased recycling of NAD is going to be leading to decreased levels of NAD. As you age, more NAD is being used up and the need for recycling increases. And there's a 50% reduction in NAD levels every 20 years because the recycling mechanism is slowing down. Exercise and fasting will increase NAD levels. NAD is a very large molecule that requires 5 precursors assembled inside of cells. It's such a large molecule that it's very difficult to get inside of cells as an intact single molecule. These precursors are from B vitamins such as niacin or nicotinic acid, tryptophan, which is an amino acid, nicotinamide, also known as niacinamide. Then there's substances such as NMR and NMN. Niacin B3 or nicotinic acid deficiency, which leads to NAD deficiency, is also known as pellagra. And classically, people who had deficiencies in these vitamins had the 4Ds, the dermatitis, diarrhea, dementia, and death. And it probably represents the biggest reason why people have poor recuperative capabilities with advancing age, even during times such as COVID infections. It could be the niacin deficiency that is probably the biggest indicator of who's going to do poorly with these infections. With regard to aging, there's increased DNA damage due to UV radiation, diet, and other inflammatory conditions. And these conditions stimulate enzymes such as PARP, subtypes of which are used in many inflammatory responses in DNA repair. And in this process of trying to repair DNA, NAD is being used up. It's part of the repair action. And DNA damage can cause a drop in NAD levels within 5 minutes. CD38 is a membrane glycoprotein on B and T white blood cells, lymphocytes, that house enzymes that play a role in cell adhesion, migration, signal transduction. It's a cell signaler and it activates the immune system. And CD38 activation leads to increased inflammation, and it's a highly inefficient user of NAD, so it chews up a lot of NAD when it's activated. If we can decrease the expression of CD38, which really means if we can reduce the things that lead to inflammation, we can dramatically increase the levels of NAD that are present simply by decreasing the consumption of the NAD that we have in our body. Inflammation is the biggest activator of CD38. It also activates parts of the PARP mechanism or enzymes, and the reduced capability of the body to recycle NAD is what leads to drops in NAD. You get symptoms like fatigue, joint aches, muscle pains, abdominal pain, diarrhea, constipation, bloating, panic attacks, avoidant behavior, depression, poor concentration, irritable mood, and irritated skin conditions. And there seems to be a big intersection of many different kinds of conditions associated with an NAD deficiency or decline. So as we said, NAD is a very large molecule. It's very hard to transport it inside of cells. So the strategies to try to increase the way you recycle NAD inside of your cells is probably the strongest strategy in increasing your levels. There are lots of substrates aside from the B complex vitamins, specifically nicotinamide mononucleotide or NMN and nicotinamide riboside or NMR supplements are part of the substrates that your body needs in order to create NAD from scratch. And what's very curious is that even if you take these supplements, the reality is malabsorption or conditions that don't allow you to absorb supplements have never really been shown to be a huge condition of having decreased NAD production in your body, meaning that the recycling mechanism probably plays a bigger role in your NAD levels. Nonetheless, you shouldn't just rely on the recycling mechanism. You need to make sure that you're providing the kind of substrate that your body needs to make NAD. So taking things such as NMR, NMN, taking nicotinamide, at least 50 milligrams 3 times a day, and niacin is essential. So we can see that we need to have enough substrate in order to produce NAD, but a lot of these same substrates are used by the salvage pathway so that it can work efficiently to reclaim the NAD that you've used in other processes. So together with inhibiting CD38 from being activated by reducing overall inflammation in the body and decreasing PARP activity through behavior modification, it's possible to significantly boost your NAD levels and our sense of well-being and positively impact mental and physical performance. So we can also boost NAD levels in cells by using precursors that inhibit CD38 and activate NAMPT, which really is the main enzyme that you need in order to reclaim used up or reduced NAD. So NAMPT is a bottleneck step in NAD recycling. And what it does is it converts nicotinamide back to NMN, back to NAD. So this tends to decline with age. Usually it's reduced by 50% every 20 years. And if you also have activation of CD38 and PARP during that time, you can see why NAD levels can drop significantly. So if you really think about it, there's a 50% reduction of NAD by age 20. There's another 50% reduction between ages 20 and 40. And these reduced NAD levels are probably the largest risk factor for all diseases, including serious COVID outcomes and vaccination complications. NAD is an essential piece in the oxidative process and in dampening inflammation. Without adequate levels, you allow for unchecked ongoing inflammation, DNA damage, which increases your risk for cancers, and reducing your ability to increase the portion of life that you live in good health. So strategies for improving NAD levels include the use of precursors, CD38 inhibition, by modifying diet and eliminating other inflammatory factors between leaky gut, leaky gums, toxic food exposures, toxic metal exposures. You could also try to use NAMPT activators, which will help reclaim NAD in the recycling mechanism, and following behaviors that will decrease DNA damage. In other words, there's a multi-pronged approach, and it's not all about supplementation. It's all about also helping your body reclaim NAD that already exists there. So important NAD substrates are NMR, NMN, nicotinamide, as we said, 50 milligrams 3 times a day, tryptophan, which helps the liver create NMN, niacin is essential, and just by using those substrates, you can increase your NAD levels by 40 to 60%. Inhibiting CD38 by reducing chronic inflammation is very powerful, and one of the most essential things that we do in the wellness and functional medicine realm is identifying those sources of chronic inflammation, and through our personalized plans, eliminating or significantly reducing inflammation so that you could start reclaiming more of that NAD. PARP, which is important in the repair of DNA, if you could inhibit PARP to increase NAD. PARP is important for the repair of DNA. So even though PARP is using NAD, it would not make sense to eliminate PARP because it's very essential in the repair of DNA. So the strategy should be to reduce any damage. And the typical things that a human body is going to be exposed to will be ultraviolet radiation, EMFs, X-rays. These are the kinds of things that will activate the DNA repair arm of PARP. And if we could reduce our behaviors that lead to these exposures, we'll be using less NAD in our lives. And currently, PARP inhibitors are being used as anti-cancer agents to promote DNA damage. So obviously, if you inhibit PARP, you're allowing for DNA damage to occur, and those cells will die off. But unfortunately, the side effect is that normal cells die off as well when you use these agents. So this is not something that's really considered in the health, wellness, and regenerative realm. But there are agents out there that take advantage of this biochemistry. So IV NAD, which is very popular, is a very big molecule, and it can directly enter into the brain despite being such a large molecule. And it does that through channels that are specifically there large enough to allow for this NAD molecule to get in. And it not only dominates the realm of treatment for addiction, brain fog, long haul, depression, and dementia, but even in the peripheral space, it can act as a substrate to increase NMN and NMR levels so that they can get into cells and start producing NAD endogenously. So other strategies that we can use, such as maybe strategies to activate NAMPT, which is the salvage pathway. Things like time-restricted eating can activate this pathway. Exercising in the morning before you break the fast. Exposing your body to heat stressors like saunas a few times a week. The use of items such as EGCG, which you can find in green teas. These are all habits and behaviors that will increase your NAMPT levels, and in doing so is going to help you reclaim and increase your levels of NAD. Studies have shown that if you do 3 weeks of resistance training, you can increase your NAMPT levels by about 127%. Probably even more powerful than just using supplements alone. So increased NAD levels also support sirtuin activity, and sirtuins help to activate longevity genes, helping you live longer. And these behaviors also increase autophagy and the FOXO3 mechanism, which is a transcription factor that seems to be heavily associated with autophagy and longevity genes. So FOXO3 is a master regulator in the response to stress, and NAD increases sirtuins, which activate FOXO3 transcription factors, and pretty much will help you achieve that goal of living a longer and healthier life. Of all these options, supporting the activity for the NAD salvage pathway and reducing unnecessary consumption, of all these options, if you're to do one thing, it's to participate in activities that are going to improve the NAD salvage pathway and reducing unnecessary consumption. This is paramount to achieving optimal health. So, at WPR Medical, so really the point of today, aside from educating you about NAD, is to help you realize that WPR Medical and Meraki Wellness and Health have programs in place which help you achieve optimal results. So call us to arrange for a consultation to see if you can benefit from our plethora of regenerative program options and mobile services. I'll see you next time.